Why Africa is poor despite having 30% of world's minerals reserves, 8% of world's natural gas, 12% of oil reserves, 40% of gold, 90% of world platinum and chromium, 60% of world's uncultivated arable land, 16% of world's forest. In this video, we will discuss causes. Number 1. Colonialism. Africa was colonized by European powers in the 19th century, and the legacy of this era has had a lasting impact on the continent's economic development. Colonialism created a system of exploitation that focused on extracting resources from Africa for the benefit of European powers. This left Africa with weak economies, underdeveloped infrastructure, and a lack of industrialization. The colonial legacy has also contributed to political instability, corruption, and conflict. Number 2. Natural resource curse. Africa is home to abundant natural resources, including minerals, oil, and gas. However, the exploitation of these resources has not always translated into economic growth and development. Instead, in many cases, the wealth generated from natural resources has been concentrated in the hands of a few elites, while the rest of the population remains poor. This phenomenon is known as the resource curse and has been observed in many African countries. Number 3. Governance. The quality of governance in many African countries is poor, with high levels of corruption, weak institutions, and limited accountability. This has hindered economic development and created an environment that is not conducive to investment and business growth. The lack of effective governance has also contributed to political instability and conflict, which has further hampered economic development. Number 4. Debt. Many African countries have high levels of debt, which limits their ability to invest in infrastructure and other development projects. This debt burden is often a legacy of colonialism, with many African countries inheriting debt from their former colonizers. In addition, some African countries have borrowed heavily in recent years to finance development projects, leading to unsustainable levels of debt. Number 5. Global economic inequality. Africa's poverty is also a result of global economic inequality. Developed countries have benefited from globalization and free trade, while many African countries have been left behind. The global economic system has been designed to benefit developed countries at the expense of developing countries, and this has contributed to the poverty and underdevelopment of many African countries. Number 6. Health and education. Poor health and education outcomes also contribute to Africa's poverty. High levels of disease, malnutrition, and infant mortality have a direct impact on economic development, as does a lack of access to quality education. Improvements in health and education outcomes are essential for breaking the cycle of poverty in Africa. In conclusion, Africa's poverty is the result of a complex mix of historical, political, economic, and social factors. Addressing these issues will require a sustained effort from African governments, international organizations, and the global community. Only by working together can we create a more equitable and prosperous future for Africa.